Hi, I'm Allison Perry, and I teach physical education at the ninth through 12th grade level. Um, I chose an infographic for my final project for the visual literacy class, and I used Piktochart to create it. This was my first time attempting to use Piktochart, and had a few setbacks and some things that I needed to work through in order to get the project the way I wanted it to look. For one, just the formatting, not understanding what I wanted to do for the formatting of this project. But as I looked through some of the templates, this one seemed to be the best option for me for what I wanted to do. The project is a lesson on establishing a one repetition max. So this is a resistance training lesson. So there are some steps that students will need to take to get through this lesson. And so that is another reason why I chose this format, because it has sections that break each step down pretty well. I chose a couple different fonts. This one particular font here is a bold font and all caps, and I used all caps just for the heading, but I used the same font for the various headings throughout the project, with a different font for the explanation of the task. The colors that I chose, this was the template colors, but I worked with them a little bit and added a few. But the primary colors that I used is a light yellow and a good contrast with kind of a burnt red color. And I have some accents with gray. This particular background on this slide I used because I thought it represented a fitness center floor or equipment pretty well. I thought that was really cool. So as I go through the project, I give a definition of what a one repetition max is. Students will be working on establishing an estimated one repetition max. And so they need to understand what a one rep max is and what it is that they could do with that information. And then the project is broken down into steps. So steps to how to select an exercise. Students would be using 4 different major muscle group muscles in order to work through this lesson. The second step, adjusting machine to fit the student. I had to work with some graphics here because the program didn't provide graphics that I could use, so I had to find some clip art that would be appropriate and some pictures that would be appropriate. So in this particular part of the presentation, I chose a machine to represent different areas that students would need to adjust when starting their workout. And this is a picture that I actually took of one of the pieces that we have in our fitness center, so this will help them to make some connections to what it is that they're actually doing. As we go through this, I did change the background a little bit to make this a little bit more of a subtle color. It was a little bit brighter before. I thought this just worked a little bit better. And again, maintaining the font. And this particular one, I chose to change the color because I wanted to highlight this particular word. I could not bold it with this program, so by making it all caps and underlining, I thought that would bring the attention to the students a little bit better. And as we go through this, I used graphics to illustrate the one repetition max, estimated one repetition max sequence that they would have to do 2 repetitions to 10 repetitions to find the correct amount of weight that they'd be using. And I used the arrow to depict that they'd be in between these 2 numbers. Using pictures to show full range of motion, start to finish, and making sure that they work through the whole process and working to fatigue. The last few slides I chose to keep a white background because I didn't want it to get too busy with some of the things that I was going to be putting on the slides. This is the one rep max chart that the students would see in the fitness center for them to identify the weight that they actually used during their exercise or their 1 repetition trial, and the amount of repetitions that they actually used. And this chart will help them to identify what their estimated 1 rep max would be. This last step, they take that information, and because most students in my freshman wellness class have not worked out before or don't have a lot of information in regards to weight training or resistance training, we use this 1 repetition max to identify the weight that they should be working at during their typical workout. And they need to identify goals before they find that weight. So it gives them a choice of whether they're working for strength or endurance, highlighting the percentage of their 1 rep max that they would be taking if they were working on endurance, and if they were working on strength. So because this is all one lesson, that is kind of the end of it, because we would then take this information and implement it into an actual workout. But I think that this project was good for me to see how things should be laid out for students from a visual perspective. I'm a very visual person myself, so I like the use of color, I like the use of graphics. So it was a little bit challenging for me to come up with the appropriate use of graphics and pictures and things like that that didn't get too crazy. So I hope I was able to do that, and I hope you enjoyed my project. Thanks so much.